Hello everyone. In the previous PPT, we have seen the concept of correlation. Let us now see the methods of assessing correlation. The first method is the scatter diagram method. It is a graphical method of assessing correlation between two variables. In the scatter diagram method, the two variables are plotted on the two axes and the points are plotted on this graph. When the points observed are plotted in this graph, if they are found to lie on a straight line from bottom left to top right, the variables are said to have perfect positive correlation. Similarly, if all the points lie on the same straight line and they move from top left to bottom right, the correlation between the two variables is said to be perfect negative correlation. For imperfect positive correlation, again the points go from bottom left to top right, but they are not collinear but show a somewhat increasing trend from bottom left to top right. Similarly, for imperfect negative correlation, it is found that the variables show a trend from top left to bottom right, but they are not collinear. If the variables do not show any kind of trend, then it is called as no correlation between the two variables, and you can see that the points are spread all over or scattered all over the graph. The value of correlation coefficient will always lie between -1 and +1, and if to be found analytically is measured with the help of correlation coefficient R. Now we had seen this chart in the previous PPT describing different types of correlations. Let us now try to assess the value to the correlation coefficient R depending upon the nature of correlation. If there is no correlation between the two variables, the value of R is 0. If the correlation between the two variables is positive, the value of R lies between 0 and 1 inclusive of the value 1. Similarly, if the correlation is negative, the value of R lies between -1 and 0 inclusive of the value -1. If the correlation is perfect, the correlation coefficient R takes value +1 for positive correlation and -1 for negative correlation, and for imperfect positive and negative correlation, these inequalities will be strict inequalities, that is R will lie between 0 and 1 or -1 and 0 for positive and negative respectively. Now this value of R lying between 0 and 1 or -1 and 0, if tends towards 0, it shows a weak correlation in positive or negative direction. If the value of R tends to 1, it is said to have strong positive correlation, and if it tends to -1, the two variables are said to have strong negative correlation. The analytical value is given by Carl Pearson, hence known as Carl Pearson's correlation coefficient R, and it is given by this formula, which can be simplified as shown below. And this Carl Pearce correlation coefficient measures the degree of collinearity between the two variables. Sometimes it is found that though the variables are not logically related to each other, the coefficient of correlation obtained between the observations of those two variables turns out to be positive or shows strong correlation. Such a correlation is called as a spurious correlation, where the variables are not logically related, but the observations on the variables show that they are strongly